So Avengers Endgame, obviously, super ambitious way to end the Infinity Saga. A big movie like this that ties all of this kind of stuff together, we're going to end up with some WTF questions, right? There's going to be some things that it's like, wait a minute. So the first one I want to talk about, time travel. They got time travel now, Tom. What are we going to do with time travel in their back pocket?
I think their idea of what to do with it is not explain it super well, because then people are going to start picking apart the logistics of it all. Sure. The movie goes way out of its way to try to move your focus off really paying attention to the intricacies of time travel. The one that you can most closely associate it with is Looper, which also takes a tack of having, like Bruce Willis's character say to his younger self, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, like, if you start pulling these strings, like, you're going to just lose your mind. Just trust me. Time travel's a thing, and we're dealing with it right now. And that's very much Endgame's strategy, where it's very convenient to get all the Infinity Stones back, and a convenient way to revisit these past amazing moments from the MCU, kind of have like your little clip show moment in this final film of the Infinity Saga. But yeah, they certainly leave more questions than answers, I think.
They actually kind of like cleaned it up really well. For me, it was like, okay, when something happens, it all branches off. But once you bring them all together, it all comes back together. And I was like, okay, I'm good with that. Like, that's fine. But you know what? I'm just going to take that.
But my problem with that is that leaves a lot of unanswered questions when it comes to like Loki taking the Space Stone out of 2012 and portaling out of there. We don't know where he is. Probably that's like the first frame of the Loki TV series, right? But that moment, and also seeing Cap having gone back and returned the Tesseract. I mean, did he return the Tesseract to 1970, or where
that was the idea,
Loki
right?
took it in 2012?
Too many questions, Tom.
You have to return it to where you got it, right?
Yeah.
So that one was
probably
1970. Yeah.
So when Loki took it in 2012, like maybe it's somewhere else when Thanos is trying to...
See, this is the thing.
But
we've been talking about this for a while, not just what you're seeing on camera, but no one can kind of come up with one way to explain how time travel works in the MCU. And to Tom's point, they didn't really want us to think about it, but we're nerds. We're going to do that.
We're going to think about it.
We're thinking a little.
Yeah, well, I think everyone's going to walk away with a slightly different take. It's not all going to make sense.
Most people aren't going to care as much as we do about
That's
it.
the truth.
This matters.
Yeah, that is the truth.
But it's definitely really confusing. The more you think about it, the less sense it makes. But I will say, if just watching it once, it made enough sense that I was okay.
There was
it.
nothing egregious about how they handled time travel. Like the way that I'm looking at it is, I can't remember who said it in the movie, but they talked about how it's just like, no, if you go into the past, like that's still you. You're still moving forward to your future, but it's just in the past now. Like it's still one.
Professor Hulk said that.
Yeah, Professor
explaining
Hulk,
it to Ant-Man.
Yeah.
Okay, so big WTF question I have is, what is going on with Gamora? I mean, are there two of them? Did she die? What's going on? Like, I'm so confused. Joshua, help me.
Well, yeah, you bring up a really good point, because at the very end we see Peter Quill scanning for Gamora, and it looks like that 2014 Gamora that came to the future. So I think she did not get snapped away, but along with all of Thanos' forces and all the other time-traveling intruders. I think she survived that. But then it brings up the question of, well, that's an old Gamora, so if he does go find her, that's not our original Gamora who fell in love with him, as we saw when she kneed him in the nuts. But there's this other question that you have to consider as what's the deal with the Soul Stone? Because Black Widow went into the past with Hawkeye and sacrificed herself, traded soul for a soul. So when Cap presumably, follow me here, put the Soul Stone back, does that mean that Gamora then was released? I don't really know. I'm having trouble here even trying to talk all this out.
Yeah.
But I think the ultimate answer is no. There's no Soul Stone shenanigans based on what Hulk said when he tried to do the snap. He tried to bring back Black Widow, and he got a big no from that. And I think whatever sort of mystical exchange is going on there with the Soul Stone, that's a one-way ticket.
Yeah,
that's
Soul Stone's permanent. Yeah.
And so therefore that applies to Gamora as well. So original Gamora is dead, and we're left with this 2014 Time Remnant Gamora who's still around in the present?
We
How
rolled-
did I do?
I
we
think
rolled
that was
back
good.
the software a couple of years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I would argue it's still the same Gamora, right? Like it's just the Gamora that we met at the beginning of Guardians.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. So like Gamora in 2014 just fast forwarded past the time at which she was sacrificed for the Soul Stone. She's not been on the adventures with the Guardians at that point, so she hasn't grown or changed or fallen in love with Quill or
Yeah.
any of that stuff. But it's the same Gamora because ultimately she chooses the right side, right?
Yeah, she's almost completed her emotional arc of Guardians of the Galaxy in Endgame again. So we're starting out with her, even though we don't know where she is, we do know that she's good at heart and that she can be, she can integrate herself.
Do you
And
think
she's
Quill's
also,
going to
like-
win her back over again? I'm honestly looking forward to seeing how that romance plays out again. Like, you know what I mean? I'm like, she was already kind of put off by him a little bit, but I mean,
Little bit. She
rightfully
hit him in the
so.
nuts. Yeah,
Somebody
I mean, it's the-
grabs your face and you're not really familiar with them. But I mean,
think we're
again, he didn't know the
invested in that.
situation.
It's
all
the
that
right.
stuff.
It's the right move. Like,
Yeah.
no, you don't get to touch me. Like,
Yeah, no, it was the right move.
Here's a new
Yeah.
It's still
impulse.
2014 Gamora.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I just like want to see like, okay, what's Quill gonna do now? Like he has all these feelings and memories. She doesn't have those, so I don't know. That'll be fun to see play out.
Yeah, so ultimately, just to put a pin in this, I think that the plot of Guardians 3 will probably be the Guardians going to look for this new Gamora and trying to bring her back to the team. But obviously, as we've just said, there's a lot of things going to be different. This isn't the same Gamora. I don't know how that romance is going to play out. She doesn't have the same friendships with all the Guardians, so it's going to take some readjusting, but I do think it'll be interesting to see how she does factor into the next Guardians movie.
Okay, so after the movie, there's a big question about Black Widow, right? And it has to do with the Soul Stone and when it is returned, and is she somehow released from the pact or whatever with the Soul Stone that Hawkeye made, however that mysticism works. Is there a chance that Black Widow is alive again?
I don't think so. Not based on the evidence that the movie gives us. I think of any of the sort of undoing aspects that we kind of explore, the one that seems the least likely is the fact that any death in service of getting the Soul Stone is permanent. I think that Black Widow's sacrifice stands. We obviously know that she has a solo film coming up. Guessing that's going to be a prequel, and I think we know, or there have been reports of that.
The reports
Yeah.
have said, yes, it's a prequel.
Yeah.
And then I heard a rumor report-ish thing that said it's going to actually take place after the first Avengers movie, so after she's become an Avenger.
So yeah, we will see a future for her, but the future will be in the past.
In the past.
Not confusing at all.
And whether or not that past is different from the past we already know is jury's still out.
Yeah. What happened
Exciting.
in Budapest?
Who knows? Maybe we'll
What
get that in the movie.
happened?
That would be a great thing to explore in the movie. Maybe it's actually set right after the Avengers, but we get some flashbacks. Because we did get an interesting wrinkle of her past when she says that she never knew her father's name after the Red Skull speaks it, which is actually hinting at something from the comics, that she was an orphan and then was recruited by the Red Room at a young age and was taken to, ballerina death school and turned into an assassin. So I think it'd be great to explore that as well.
I'd be in for that. Like, give me some Black Widow backstory. I'm gonna go on the record though. I don't want to know what happened in Budapest.
I'm
let
saying,
that be
let
on
that
its
be a
own.
mystery.
Yeah.
Let that be Hawkeye and Black Widow's thing. It's none of our business,
I'm fine with that too.
Yeah, it's just like Guns N' Roses never should have made Chinese democracy,
That's what I keep saying.
right?
Okay, so let's chat about Loki. Love him. And the Tesseract. Did anybody see that coming? Like, I was like, what?
I mean, the Tesseract's in like every other MCU movie.
No,
at
but
this
him,
point. It was like Captain
him
Marvel.
hitting him
there
and him
needs-
just disappearing like that was just like,
Yeah.
okay,
If there
Loki.
needs to
getting
be
it back.
one thing survive Endgame, it's gonna be the Tesseract.
It's always going to be
Yeah,
a Tesseract. It's
very
going to be in
true.
something's
Bad penny.
stomach or.
But where is he?
That's a great question. I actually thought where that scene was going to go was that he ported out with the space stone. He escaped. I thought they were going to go have to pursue him, and we're going to get some really juicy, cool, like Tom Hiddleston scenes.
I was hoping for that too.
But they just never address it again, which makes me think they left that hanging on purpose, and maybe Loki's story isn't done. We do know that Loki is going to be getting a TV show starring Tom Hiddleston on Disney Plus, the new streaming service. Perhaps they'll pick up right there and explore where that 2012 post-Battle of New York Loki went and the adventures he went on and how it all kind of ties back together. Because eventually, if I have the timeline shenanigans correct, eventually the Tesseract has to come back to where it was, or at least wind up in a similar place for time to continue as it did. Also, IGN's own Jim Vejvoda talked to Kevin Feige, and Kevin Feige was talking about how Loki has lived a very long life, and he's like gesturing sort of like to the past, with a wave of his hand. And so I think if you read into that, it's that he's an ancient being of he's what,
Thousands of years
old. And so there's a lot to explore there. So maybe we'll pick up with him on that moment, but then we'll get some like flashbacks to his history and get to see, Loki's younger years.
Like Doctor Who, if the Doctor was like a real jerk.
Oh my God. That would be great.
Very here for that.
Yeah. I'd watch that show.
Mischief.
Yeah, ancient cosmic adventures with Loki. Like, let's do it.
Yeah.
I'm totally in.
Totally
But I
in.
do think that like him getting out of there with the Tesseract and them just never dealing. That's the one moment in Endgame that feels like something out of Iron Man 2, right? It feels like something that's just like, this is a thing that we got to put in here to set some other stuff up. But because they never addressed it, and because he didn't show back up at any point, it's just like, that has to be open-ended.
There doesn't feel like a lot of setup for further MCU movies here, other than just like bring all the heroes back to life. Yeah. But that was one moment that very much felt like a thread that was being left to be picked up
I agree
later.
with that too.
A bit jarring, I agree, but more Loki.
More Loki.
He could still be out
And we'll
there.
get Loki without the character development that he gets throughout, his MCU journey up to his death in Infinity War. So the version of Loki that everyone really fell in love with was Avengers Loki. And so the
Snarky
fact we're going to
Loki.
get that, piece of crap Loki as the star of this series is very exciting to me.
So a question a lot of people have been wondering, right at the tail end of Endgame, we're at Tony Stark's funeral, there at his lake house, we're paying past all these familiar faces, everybody that we know from the MCU, and then we land on this teenage boy. Like, and it's just like, wait a minute, who's that boy,
Yeah.
Boy, who are you? Did you get your invite?
Boy, how'd you get to Tony Stark's lake house?
He's a little older now, but that is Harley Keener from Iron Man 3. It was kind of cool to see him back. We talked so much about how good of a job this movie does of acknowledging its history and everything that led up to this point. And we also spoke a little bit about the fact that Tony is this great mentor, right? He's become this mentor to other Avengers, to Peter, and he was to Harley. He's a hero to this kid, and to see him back for that moment to say goodbye, to say his goodbye, that was really. They didn't have him say any dialogue or anything like that, but having him present for that, I thought was a really nice, subtle little moment.
Because it's been a couple of years since we've seen him, and it's been 5 years longer than that, right? Because of the 5-year time jump. So he's what? He might be 20 by now.
Played by the same actor, Ty Simpkins,
Oh, that's really
which is
cool.
a nice touch. And I think that was really special that they brought him back and thought to include him there. Nice attention to detail and respecting the history of the MCU. But also, I think that might not be the last time we see him. If I'm just going into Theory Town here, where I spend most of my time because I can't sleep at night.
Theory Town,
Theory
population
Town.
Josh.
Is that he could maybe fill the role of Iron Lad on the Young Avengers. Young Avengers, a bunch of kids who grow up inspired by the Avengers or are direct children, descendants of the Avengers. Ant-Man's daughter, Cass, actually grows up to be Stature. And now that she was aged up through the time jump, she could be the size-changing hero Stature on the Young Avengers, be joined by Iron Lad. There's other characters who they've kind of set up in various ways, but that's a full team, and he could fill a role on that. The kid inspired by Iron Man.
Yeah.
Would Spider-Man be their leader?
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh,
That would be so
mind
great.
blown. Yeah, that'd be awesome. Okay, so at the end of the movie, we see Peter Parker, and he has this emotional reunion. He's walking back into high school, and his friends are there, and I was just like, were all these kids gone? Did they all disappear? Did
None of
anybody
them
else
look
have a lot
5
of
years
questions?
old,
all look the same.
Yeah. Was I the only one who was like, what happened?
Yeah, that is a very interesting point because, first of all, the year is 2023 because we're at that
Yeah.
5-year time jump from 2018 where Infinity War was, right? And yeah, you got it right. We actually talked to a source, an anonymous source on Marvel, who confirmed that all of Peter's friends, like the entire cast of the Spider-Man movies, also got dusted. So when they all show back
Really
up,
drew some short stinks.
Yeah, seriously.
when they all show back up in Far From Home, they'll all be the appropriate age and still in the same grade, which when you think about it, kind of sucks. Like I died and I still have to finish school.
Yeah, that is also a weird thing about about the decimation, right, is like he killed 50% of everything, right down the middle, right? Bring everything back to balance. But like as far as the Bartons are concerned, he killed 80%. That's 4 out of 5. And literally everybody that Peter goes to high school with also, they're like, that just doesn't seem fair.
Yeah.
They just play real
what are the
fast and loose
logistics
with the
on that?
decimation, right?
Yeah, what are the logistics of the decimation?
None,
It's
apparently.
short straws, apparently.
It's a coin flip, I guess, and they just got very unlucky at that high school.
Maybe because he was on Earth when he did it, it affected them more.
Oh, yeah.
Also, you can imagine Sony had something to say about that whole thing, probably, because you don't want like Flash Thompson being like 5 years older than the rest of the cast.
I kind of
is-
do.
Yes.
Actually, now that I say it out loud, hilarious.
I would
A 21-year-old high school bully.
I would love for Flash Thompson to have not been dusted. His life, he goes the way of Thor, right? He gets super like upset, and then now he's like a broken shell of himself when everybody else comes back and picks up right where they left off, and he's like, "But I want to restart. I want to be
Far
back
From
in high
Home
school."
would be so depressing if
Yeah.
that is what they did.
It would be fantastically depressing.
But more to my point, back to my point, which is that I think Sony wants to be able to pick up right where they left off with the last movie. I'm sure they will acknowledge Endgame. They have to in some fashion, but they want to kind of just get back to the story they were telling with Peter Parker and his friends. So they kind of had to say, oh, they were all dusted, and now they're all back at the exact same time, as you were.
We're the Avengers. We gotta finish this.
Avengers Endgame wrapped up the Infinity Saga, but what is next? Normally, after an Avengers movie, like after the first Avengers film and after Age of Ultron, it really like informs the story moving forward into the next phase. You know, a lot of the next phase is kind of a reaction to the Avengers movies. Do we think that's going to be the case here? Like, what are they going to do next?
Black Panther, Doctor Strange, a lot of cool stuff. Captain Marvel. I mean, I'm looking forward to it. I definitely, there's a soft spot in my heart for the original 6, obviously. But it'll be kind of cool to see what they do with Doctor Strange and all these new faces that I've seen, Spider-Man, you know? So I'm personally looking forward to it. I want something new. I want something fresh, so.
I got a question for the room.
Oh.
If all those characters who we know are getting sequels, become the face of the next Avengers team, like a Captain Marvel-led Avengers team with Spider-Man, with Doctor Strange, with Black Panther, other folks,
Etc.
whoever
Pay
else
some respect to Wong, please.
Wong
true.
shows up.
He got invited to Tony's wedding.
Does that lineup excite you as much as it would, one of the previous first 4 Avengers movies did?
No, it does.
We need more.
Black
It
Panther?
frankly does
blood.
not.
Oh,
And
wow.
that's why I feel like they've got a lot of work to do, right? Like if we don't get another Avengers movie for 7 or 8 years, it's probably okay, right?
Yeah.
Like they did. I mean, the last 22 movies have done such an incredible thing. To think that you can just immediately build more from there is like I don't see that coming from Kevin Feige, from the MCU. I think they're going to reset a little bit. In fact, I think like the post-credit scene of Endgame with it's pretty clearly sounds like Tony hammering on his original Iron Man armor in the cave. Like I feel like that is more of a like the MCU, the filmmakers telling us like we're starting from scratch here.
Yeah, I think we're going to be seeing a very similar thing on a saga-wide scale as we see after Avengers films usually, and what usually happens after an Avengers movie comes out is they release one that is sort of a palate cleanser, lower stakes. We saw that after Age of Ultron, it was Ant-Man. After Infinity War, it was Ant-Man and the
Also
Wasp.
Ant-Man.
Ant-Man's a palate cleanser.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to see that on a franchise-wide scale, where the next string of movies is probably going to be much more intimate stories, because we already know a lot of these characters. So I think we'll get more character work in with them, seeing how they feel about everything that's just happened in Endgame. But we'll start to see the seeds of that larger conflict sown.
I would actually offer something else to that. I think the next phase should be an isolated phase, like it's one chapter that isn't building like some 3-phase epic villain like they did Thanos. I think just a smaller
breath.
Yeah, of just like, let's give us one adventure that you kind of seed, in the background through all these movies, and have all those heroes assemble to fight that threat, and then move on to something else after that. So I think that would actually give them would be perfect because let's say they do Avengers Secret Invasion, the threat that was set up in Captain Marvel. And then after that, now it's been how many years is a phase? Like 4 or 5 years. Then now you're ready to do Avengers like versus X-Men and
Oh my
Fantastic Four, like introduce
Oh my
those
God.
properties. In fact, make the next phase do like an X-Men phase, right? Like where you
I'm in.
seed in all those characters.
Yeah.
Beast, many people don't know, was a longtime Avengers member in the comics. So start playing into something like that. Then headline that with these two franchises butting up against each other, Avengers versus X-Men, right? Toss in the Fantastic Four somewhere, get Doctor Doom. He's your next big villain for the phase after that. Boom.
Do
And
Civil
then-
War again, just like comics, dude.
Yeah.
Civil War again, like.
I want a Rogue Gambit love story movie. That's all I want. Okay,
it right.
that's
That's
all I
phase
want,
6. That's coming
everybody.
in phase
Yeah,
6.
that'll
Ooh.
be a while.
And if we did get Rogue, she could have her real powers, like her Superman powers, because she could steal them from Carol Danvers, like she does in the comics.
oh my gosh, stop! Can someone hire him as the writer?
I got a
Please.
screenplay.
Okay, we have so much Avengers Endgame coverage, so make sure to check out all of our videos. And as always, be sure to follow and subscribe to IGN.